out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Did you wash your hands?
No, I never wash my hands. You want a fist pump?
Hello, Tim. Great.
Oh, Ryan!
Hey, Tim.
What's up, man?
Hi.
You know what? Why I'm so happy?
Why?
Because I don't have a congested head, nor do I have a hammer in my head.
Oh, good.
These are good things.
Good. Well, then we expect you to be as alive as ever because you did fine despite being cold. And having a cold.
And being cold. No.
And being cold.
Yeah,
well,
I listened to it. My voice was pretty rough, but whatever. We got through it.
And you're here to see another day for episode 25 of Dismembering Horror.
No, 26.
26.
It's got to be 26.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 26 of Dismembering Horror.
Yeehaw.
Episode 26, a.k.a. the episode where Ryan and Tim try to justify a rape scene. Let's see how they do.
I refuse.
Yeah.
To justify it. Although, I get what you're saying. Damn it. This'll be interesting.
Okay, let's skip ahead, Tim. Did you enjoy this movie?
Hell yeah.
Would have worked the same without the rape scene? That's the big question.
Ooh, that is a good question. I don't think it would have been as effective, no.
So there's our starting point for today. And I think it was good to mention this up front because we are a two dudes talking about whatever, horror movies podcast. So it's like we are the last ones to be an authority on all this. So
right. But I think there's some interesting stuff to discuss in how you go about sensitive subject matter.
Yeah.
And I think it is important, actually, because it can be exploitative and fucked.
Right. And
but it can also be really effective art.
Oh,
that's a really weird way to put it.
Well,
but,
I thought you might have been referring not to this film, but this podcast. No. And that's why I wanted, the only thing I had was to get it out up front there.
I think it's good. Yeah, just so it's like, you know where we're gonna dive into it.
Because last week we pulled from the hat. That's how we choose our films here. The Last House on the Left. For the 2009 and remake, we ended up watching the unrated version.
Yeah.
And, just real quick, the only sort of thing I wanted to mention about last week, Tim, was remember when we pulled it, it's like, oh, how funny. We were just talking about this. We weren't talking about any other movies before we recorded that podcast. It was really weird that we were talking about this movie. I forget how it came up.
I don't remember either. There was a reason it came up. I think it just was related to Wes Craven, and it somehow made me think of it and then go, ooh, yeah.
Somehow we got on this movie, and Tim had seen it when it came out and I hadn't seen it. But anyway, it just was one of those things where it was like, I get frustrated when it's like you hear in passing, oh yeah, we were just talking about that. No, I was kind of freaking out a little bit when that happened and I pulled it.
Well, I also thought it was weird a few weeks ago when we were like talking about Suspiria, and then we pulled an Argento film.
Yeah.
So I was like, what the hell?
And then the two, from the two submissions from friends that we actually have were in a row. So we were already excited about whatever we're pulling, and now I continue to see how this serendipity at play plays out.
Yeah.
But for today, should we already announced what it is? Should we get into it?
Yes. Let's trailer it.
Trailer it for The Last House on the Left, 2009.
Are we there yet?
We are making the turn now.
It's the last house on the left, in case you forgot.
It is the only house for miles, Dad.
Do you guys need the car today? I was thinking I could meet up with Paige.
Have fun.
I don't think we've met. I'm Paige. This is Mary.
Hey.
What do you feel like doing tonight? I think Justin here could be kind of cute.
Evening. You knew not to bring anybody back here. We made the front page. That's what's going on.
This is none of our business.
I'm sorry, ladies.
Oh my God!
We just can't risk it.
Oh no! No! Please!
These are two lovely girls, Justin.
Bring her back! You got her.
Now what? I saw a house back there.
Where do we start?
Well, with the summary of the film.
Oh, okay, I can do that. Do you want me to do it? Do you want to do it?
Well, you volunteered, so.
Shit. Okay. A year after the death of their son, John and Estelle? Ooh. Emma, thank you. Oh, right, they say it like 20 times. John and Emma Collingwood and their daughter go to their lake house to sort of move on or like face the year of mourning. They haven't been there, and it reminds them of their dead son. Cool. They're in the woods, secluded. Mary wants to go into town. John and Emma are reluctant because, they already lost one kid, foreshadowing. And so Mary goes into town, and a couple really bad decisions are made by her and her friend, and a group of essentially psychopaths
who just escaped convicts.
Yeah, escaped convicts. Get a hold of them and do horrible things to them. And the story is the story of John and Emma exacting their revenge.
Yeah.
And there's so much more going on.
Yeah.
But,
and it's interesting.
Stroke,
you could actually give the summary. I think that's the way to do it. That's the thrust of the story is with Marie, the girl, the daughter. But if you
Mary.
remember, you know what?
Don't get fancy.
No, I wasn't getting fancy.
It is spelled
That's
M-A-R-I,
why. It was because they were getting fancy, and it's spelled M-A-R-I, and I was looking at it. I wasn't getting fancy intentionally. But Mary.
Yes, Mary.
Mary. Yeah, no, it's totally her story. But
that's true.
But it was just interesting when we'll get into this. It's almost like a case of switching protagonists, and like the film started with the bad guys.
It did, yeah,
opening.
you're right.
So like could also be put from their perspective. But the whole point is that never mind, I'm just getting way ahead of myself. How would you
The whole point is
never mind. Stay tuned. So how would you rate this?
Okay,
in our rating system?
To your opening point, I rate this as rent. Definitely watch it, rent it, pay money to see it. But in thinking about it, I was like, I'm not sure that I can really justifiably, because this is our suggestion to ourselves, right? I don't think I would really ever want to own a movie with a rape scene. I don't know. For some reason, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to buy it. I think what it is really ultimately, it's not just that there's a rape scene. It's that rape on film is really upsetting. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's upsetting in general, not just on film. But like to sit down and watch it is very difficult, And even if the film is, and if it's working for the film, so to speak, that's fine, but I just don't feel like I would want to own it.
And that's saying something because I know how much you loved the second half. I think that's a safe assumption.
It is
having watched this movie with you.
Safest assumption you've ever made.
So
it's really hard, but I think it's almost like saying I don't know. I don't want to subject anybody to.
Yeah, you would never go like,
weird way.
Here, let's watch this.
No. In fact, I think if I was ever in a situation, because I really, really, really like this movie, if I was ever in a situation kind of like the one we were in, but like if I was like, hey, this movie's amazing, let's watch it, I would actually say, but we can skip that scene. Which is an interesting thing to your point. Like, do you have to have that scene for this movie to work? I don't know. So, interesting debate to have.
Yeah. Well, I like to argue all sides, and I never, as much as I sound, I often don't agree with any of them. So,
yeah, it's a rent for me. But definitely, I mean, if you like If you like revenge and like visceral fucking catharsis, that's to me that this movie is full force.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, we'll get into what worked for me about it in more detail, but I was up there with Rent It too.
Yeah.
As a pure movie, it was of that tier in quality.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we referenced, you know how I really didn't like the first Strangers movie?
Uh-huh.
It felt like that was an awkward in-between between like kind of the fun Blumhouse, like slasher kind of thing, and what this movie actually was.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good way to put it as I was describing that, was an awkward in between.
Sure.
So this one was able to fully, it knew what it was more so in a way that like, and as we'll get into, was thought out in such a way.
Yeah.
I think where at least it had that attention to detail that brings me into a movie. And as you put it, catharsis. Sorry, now I'm just getting into it. Yeah. Rent It. Rent It. And yeah, no, even though like you were sounding like it would be maybe a buy for you if not for the scene, but for me it was like, no, this was just, you know, it wasn't, as I said, like a really high standard for buy it, and it wasn't there for me.
It's close, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Rent It, which we did, which is us telling ourselves to.
Well, it's interesting too because I would see this movie more than once, guaranteed. And so that's why it's so close to a buy for me.
Mm-hmm.
But then not quite.
But like you can go 7-8 years.
That's right.
Fine.
No, that's right. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what I did.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Let's just fucking go.
Let's get into.
Let's stick our hand right in the garbage disposal and turn that shit on.
Into what worked.
What worked? What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm. Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
Oh man.
I could start from the beginning. I have so much like stuff that
I know.
I kind of.
I do
you have a
too.
good starting point?
Okay. For me, I think the opening scene speaks to a larger success in this movie. And it is immediately I was on board and kind of captivated by the lead character and the actor specifically. And then you start thinking about all of the actors in this, and I'm like, oh shit.
You're talking about Krug, the lead character?
Yeah, Krug.
Yeah.
The guy who plays him, whose name is he's got a weird name, so I'm not even sure how you pronounce it. Well, his last name.
Garrett Dillahunt.
Dillahunt?
Yeah.
Or Dillahunt?
I don't think he looks very like a Dia.
Okay, fine. So Garrett Dillahunt.
Krug. Who is the rapist, we'll say.
Yeah. This is not the point I'm making, that he's amazing at the thing that he does. That actor is amazing in this. But then I start thinking, everybody is so good at what they are tasked to be as characters in this movie. Every actor. Like, I fucking love the dad. His name's Tony Goldwyn. I love that actor. I have no idea what else he's been in.
It's cool because I was like, I liked them all from as far as like the parents and the killers. I'm like, they were kind of just like, okay, cool. When it started, by the end, like everything you're saying about them really sunk in for me and their performances. Yeah.
So that to me, and even the two shitty cops that get killed, they're the first kill. There's something kind of like, yep, those are those guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a really weird thing. I just think that the casting director and the team that agreed that these were the people fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it takes off I don't know how you even put this. It makes the movie sail. Mm-hmm. Because it's never a thing that you have to think about. Mm-hmm. You're never questioning somebody's performance. You're never fucking taken out of it by they're okay but not great. For me, it like makes the movie really, really hum. because I'm like, fuck yeah, everybody's dead on what they're doing and they nail it.
Yeah. We'll talk about, I guess I have a bigger talking point about the intro, but just to sort of say, like, I guess maybe one of the more simple just things just right out that worked for me, that what made me think of it just now is you talking about the dad's performance. And I fell in love with that once the turn happened. Once it becomes the parents getting revenge for what they did to their daughter and her friend.
Yeah.
So that turn I loved, as far as it being structurally. That's what I'm getting at.
Sure.
This is the kind of film where it's like, just by the sheer fact that it had the atypical structure of, like, you know, it's about the girls going off, and then I don't want to say normally, but like, let's say like Wolf Creek is maybe an example, which is great.
Unfortunately, I have not seen Wolf Creek, and it's on my list. Like, I just haven't seen it.
Well, just as far as, you know, we're with the actual protagonist like the whole time, the clear protagonist, you know.
Sure.
Sorry, my brain's breaking. We don't usually record these in the evening, Tim. I'm not on it like we are.
Come on, Ryan, pull it together.
Okay. Let me actually find that note here. Yeah, that turn, like any movie, I like, for seeing something that is formulaic, it usually takes me out of a movie or keeps the movie from getting elevated to a certain point for me.
Sure.
So just by the fact that we had switching protagonists, like it hooked me. And also, maybe we'll get right into it, I think it helped will justify the rape scene in a way.
Yeah.
And
like, I don't think we're saying that like
just
rape is good.
No.
It's just, that's the story, and it has the, I think, appropriate story effect to motivate the characters to do what they end up doing.
Yeah. So like, I was already into this the girls' story going on, though, like in that kind of more, okay, this is just fine, it's gonna just be a whatever, girls getting away from the bad guys movies. I was already into that in that kind of fun way, that I was forgetting, like, oh wait, no, it's gonna do that turn where the parents switch to the protagonist.
You know what? Oh, go on.
So that was so much that I was actually thinking at the time that, like, I know the rape scene's about to happen. It doesn't have to. Like, they could just escape and then they're chasing after them. Like, it was just kind of funny that.
Sure,
like,
sure. If it was that movie,
so on that thread. But then once the turn happened, I kind of remembered what the movie was. I went, okay, so the story is, in essence, this is a movie that's about what would you do if this happened to your daughter.
Right.
And you can't take away the this.
Right.
And have the same movie. You could argue how it was shot or how it was shown, but as far as it happening and it being movie about, the revenge from the parents, like it, you can't take it out and have it be the same movie.
I agree. I think that the moment that the doctor, John, the dad, is, you know, they discover Mary on the porch and they bring her in, and he's sort of checking her to see what's wrong. He sees that she's been shot, but then he's kind of also examining her to see what else is hurt on her, and realizes that she's been raped. That performance moment is so fucking powerful and so upsetting and so visceral. Like, it made me kind of equal parts like sick to my stomach and just wanting to like weep for the situation.
Yeah.
And to have that in this sort of, you could kind of be like, yeah, it's Last House on the Left, it's Wes Craven sort of or it's not sequel, remake, whatever. It's just a whatever borderline torture porn, not slasher, but romp. I don't know what you call it. To have that kind of response as a viewer in this movie is really a testament to good direction, good writing, good acting, all coming together.
The good writing
moment is powerful.
That from the writing perspective, that moment worked for me, where it was like in a lot of films, in a lot of horror films, making a character the doctor feels like a cop out a lot. The dad being a doctor, maybe it was just because it was written well enough in other senses too, is why it worked. But being able to see him play that scene is kind of what I think made it extra powerful for me, because it's like he is approaching this all very, from that doctor kind of like just the facts approach. So then, he knows that he then has to tell the wife after he realizes it. So all that would have been different if he, wasn't a doctor.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think what it does character-wise is, doctors are sort of tasked with being able to cope with trauma and horrific things, because that's what they do in life. That's their job. And they have conditioned themselves to almost be removed from it.
Right.
And in his performance, I think what is so kind of compelling is that he is almost straining like to maintain that separation, and he can't.
Yeah.
And so he's like bearing down. Almost like you would bear down if somebody was setting a bone or something.
It's not like
It's such a good choice as an actor to have that like strain.
I read it as not as like a bearing down and a strain, but like if like what you said, he has that sort of, when you approach the traumatic situations and you're doctor, you sort of have this, doctor, whatever, that approach to it that you had said. But whatever that same attitude that you'd have as a doctor, that he let the sort of anger and the revenge that he had to take in that primal mode he switched into fall under that sort of same like world view that he'd have as a doctor. Yeah. Like, this is the correct thing to do when I'm, announcing a death as a doctor, to the correct thing to do right here is to murder these guys, is to save my daughter and then murder these guys. Like that was kind of,
he's dancing with that in a way. It's fucking intense. Yeah. But also you can't let go. Like I think the thing that makes this movie and what this movie is really sort of driving at the whole time is at every moment there are sort of two thoughts happening for the protagonists, which are, what's the right thing to do? What's the practical thing to do? Right? Like, and the second we see them going, well, they have to save the daughter. They have to, practically speaking, they have to do that, right? That takes precedence. And then the second they deviate from that, or seemingly deviate, and say, but those guys are still there and we're going to fucking kill them, you go, as an audience, you go, yep.
Wait, what do you mean right and practical? Because I think like, right and practical are the same, and then it's wrong. What is right, practical, and then what is the wrong thing to do? Because
I guess what I mean is not maybe instead of right, what I mean the satisfying thing to like you go, I guess I'm saying right in terms of being like, I feel that they're justified in going after them, and that there's satisfaction in that. I think
that's why this movie's so interesting, is because that's kind of the moral question of our time.
Right.
We know murder and forgiveness and the death, and our right things, and the death penalty is the bad thing. Yet we all identify with this like 100%.
Yeah, and there are other movies that try to do that thing and try to look at that and explore it or whatever, and they fail.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them.
Well,
but,
I think this
one is not one of them that fails, for me at least. I mean, it just isn't.
Okay, I think I can tie this into kind of what I was going to say about the beginning. What I was going to say about the beginning, and is kind of the larger what is this movie about? So we were talking about the the right and wrong, and killing these guys who did this to his daughter or not. The mom too, she takes action too. I see this whole movie being an exploration, meditation, whatever you want to call it. I guess meditation would be the wrong word for this film.
Maybe.
but sort of that it's exploring that how like the masculine feminine the imbalance of the masculine feminine polarity in the world. Like that's kind of all the world's problems are because of that imbalance of masculine feminine energies.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so to tie that into what we just said about, the parents killing him, it's like that. I think, things like, feminine energy, forgiveness, love, things like that. We witness the parents, people, just falling into that trap of, no, the masculine energy taking force, revenge. I should say negative, because there's good and bad in both masculine and feminine energies. So yeah, it's just, it's about that larger question. Do you kill him? Do you not? But like, it was in there and really throughout the film, like if you had this question in mind, and that it was planted in my film from the very first lines with remember the cops, like how do you describe them, where they're like such shitty cops? It's what you said. They're like the broiest like cops too, where they just were telling like the broiest kind of dude jokes, crude dude jokes, I guess, and it was kind of just sort of made us like, okay, well, we're almost, the bad guy who's the actual real bad guy in the back seat, from the get-go, we actually hate the cops more before we know who the characters are. And
they do a really brilliant writing device too. Yeah. They show, like, clearly he's a convict, he's in the backseat of a cop car, but you don't know that initially, because the way they shoot it is that they show him clean in the back seat for a few takes, a few shots, and he asks if he could go to the bathroom,
right.
and they say no, and after they say no, they cut to on the other side of the sort of whatever that barrier, that like chain link kind of barrier that separates the front seat from the back seat. They cut so that that's in frame, obscuring him. And so initially you're thinking, well, he could just be a dude with these two dudes, because you don't know it's a cop car either.
Yeah.
Right?
It takes a second to reveal it. You're right.
And they shut him down, which makes us, before we know that he's a bad guy, have just the slightest bit of empathy for him. Because we go, what dicks? Why'd they shut him down? He just needs to pee. And then we see he's the convict, he's the bad guy. But it's too late. We've already psychologically been given that tip.
Right.
To make us feel a little bit of sympathy for him, I guess.
But
it's better than empathy.
It gets completely taken away instantly.
Yeah.
But so if that convict who eventually commits the rape, that's what's so, like, how I put it, like, why rape is so just the worst of the worst. It's like, as I said, that masculine feminine imbalance, like rape represents that the ultimate just like feminine oppression, and like, and as well as denial in oneself of that energy. Yeah. So that's why the cops making those jokes from the get-go is just like, granted, you don't really want to make a comparison making jokes and rape, but really it is that same spectrum of like feminine suppression and oppression. So definitely. It became a movie about that whole spectrum and how we all kind of fall in it. And it since it's a movie about that, that's why I think it kind of like almost had to take it to the very extreme of it.
But man, they dance a very delicate dance with it, and like I think they just put their time in to sort of stay on the, I don't know if the appropriate is the right word, but like I think the effectively appropriate side of the line, because you could very easily tip into just the worst kind of exploitation.
Yeah.
And I actually think, I haven't seen the original, but reading the synopsis, I was like, whoa, that's way worse. That sounds way worse. So I'll have to watch it to see, but we can get off this whole femininity, masculinity, energies thing with Suit. I just have the very last example I had for that, though. Okay, because I might have the same one. Okay. I'm curious.
Well, it was, and this is to show it in the very lesser way how it was in there, and like, the littlest of ways was when the girls first join up with Justin in the motel room. And you remember how like, and so for me, Justin represents someone who like is a good soul, who's like aware of this disparity, this energy disparity in the world, and how we have all our problems of it. And as long as that's the way the world is now, and it's changing in our lifetimes. But we can see he doesn't know how to be in a world that the way it is,
Right, and he is being oppressed by the old version, like the old
his father
status quo,
the extreme masculinity, and his father represents the unhealthy masculinity.
Exactly, and even if he wanted to express a progressive sort of contemporary view of the world, his dad's like, no fucking way.
Or if he wanted to express it in a way when like the girls were almost flirting with him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily want to call it flirting, but it's kind of this, well, what it was, and this is more the example I was getting at, where it was like seeing the girls taking control of the situation, where it's like first like calling him cute and then starting to give him like a little makeover.
Yeah.
Ooh, put on this, dancing around Justin, playing with his hair. That was totally like, women feeling safe with who they're with, and then taking the power they should have that, the world
and that
so desperately needs.
But snatched away.
Exactly. So then it's the reversal of that happens as soon as the bad guys, which is what we'll call them, come in, including the women of the group.
Oh,
they're using that bad masculinity to like take control and put it down. And that switch happening as fast as it does. That's what I was talking about.
I mean, this whole movie is such a good exploration of how to sort of teeter-totter, or seesaw, depending on what region you're from, between, back and forth between those sort of things of maybe even a little levity, and then like, we know that the second you start to feel good or safe or like comfortable, the teeter-totter is going to fucking flip. You just know it's coming. And it's largely just because we've set up what a piece of shit Krug is. Right? And so at any given moment you go, no matter what, he's gonna tip the scale back the wrong way.
Right.
And it's gonna get gnarly.
Yeah.
And that type of character is the best type of villain, because, and I think also how the actor approached it, in having this sort of like almost, what would you call it? He's got a calmness and sort of a like, what do you call the thing when you just sort of look at the other person blankly? Like.
It's it's a total lack of, like when you said they're psychopaths,
Yeah, he's indifferent, but kind of in a weird, like,
it's that he's so stuck in whatever worldview he has as being the right one.
Yeah.
Like trying to get his son to commit rape. Right. It's like his worldview is that'll make him a man.
And he's
like wrong.
And he's totally almost confused if you do anything that is different than his worldview.
Well, it's funny.
Like, he's incredulous about it. He's like, "What? Why would you even? Why wouldn't you do it this way? This is the way it's done."
I just said this is funny, which is a hard segue from what you just said. But like, my thought during the witnessing the insanity of these bad guys in the hotel scene and later motel was how whether it's like a couple or a few people, they're all crazy, it becomes a bubble where that just churns and becomes more and more insulated. And that's what I think of in a different extent with like so many couples are like that I know, where it's like they all become their insular kind of crazy, it's a bit, that was just coming off of what I was just saying, but their insularness of like kind of their opinions on things or the way they do things. Yeah. It becomes sort of, when something is not that, it makes you feel like, the weird one stepping into their world.
Oh yeah.
So this was just the extreme version of that,
Well, yeah. And like, when you consider yourself the rational one, right? Objectively or not,
which
whatever.
Craig does. Yeah.
Right. But we, the viewer, dude, we've all been around people who we go, oh shit, they are unmovable in their point of view. And it is very disquieting to be around. I find it where I personally like it is like fight or flight response when I'm around a person where I go, oh, this person is they're I don't want to. It's not that they're crazy, but they are so set in a point of view that I personally maybe even fundamentally disagree with. You go, oh shit, there's no reasoning.
Well,
with
that's
this
what
person.
To put it back in movie terms, film terms, like you say, this was almost a kind of like rare instance, not quite hearkening back, but like of a more modern film where the bad guy was so truly like a pure bad guy. It was like in the sense of, talk about the Emperor versus Vader.
Sure.
Like, of the Emperor being that, that takes a fantasy film though in order to have.
Yeah.
But like in today's day and age, it's harder and harder to write villains where we don't, and you almost have to take the supernatural bent a lot.
Sometimes,
it's harder where we don't sort of like can get the windows into sort of how they're messed up or the psychology are. But it was just that this guy from the get-go was so far gone that still really disturbs us and can be a true bad guy.
And you're so right though. It's his view of the world is so it's just so fucking, he's got such a clear blinders to anything else. Mm-hmm. And that is scary. It's super scary because you can't fucking move him.
Do you want, let's move on here.
Yeah. Yes.
A case of, I liked, I think you had the opposite reaction to this, but it's so hard to do in movies, like of where we're sort of a case of chance, like actually works for the film, where it doesn't feel like it's totally convenient or whatever.
Or contrived,
contrived. Where it's both them driving. Yeah, it's where they end up in close proximity to her parents' house. Therefore, she knows, like, gets an idea for the escape.
Right.
Like, that the chances of them showing up at, you said it was, I think a part of you was actually like, oh, it's pretty good chances. This was a small town.
Yeah.
But I differ. I think it's like still great because they could have gone, they were driving for a while to get from sort of the town to the house. It could have been any direction.
True.
I really do think it was like, what are the chances? And it was kind of like, you're allowed one of those in a movie.
Well, and I think they massage the edges of that contrivance.
Yeah. Well,
right?
It's like her picking which turn to get.
Yeah. Up to that point, you go, what are the odds that they got this far in the right direction to give her the opportunity to say, oh no, you should go left.
But it played well
did.
Because I think how it did that was we were with her when she goes, oh crap, this is right by my place. Oh my God, we're here. What can we do?
And look, that is something that happens in life.
Yeah.
We experience this all the time where we go, what are the fucking odds?
That we were talking about this movie right before we pulled it.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I just think that everybody involved really did their work.
How about then into the car crash that happened? That was some staging.
Yeah. I was like, there's the whole budget right there.
Right. Boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom.
it was good. I mean, you could kind of just say all in all, across the board, the pacing, the writing, the acting, like all of that stuff was just really, really well done.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it is a perfect movie because there are certainly things that you can criticize, but
we will.
Yes. But there's I think an overarching just professionalism to this movie that is working on a surface level of the construction of things and on a thematic deeper level.
So taken from that point, the car crash, it was working so well for me because it was like, oh God, is she going to be injured enough to run away?
Right.
Who's injured here? What are their friends? What are they going through? It was just sort of that, like,
Jesse
enough of a what's going to
Pinkman's
happen.
face gets busted up.
Okay, so since you mentioned that, I had that. Pinkman. I just wrote Pinkman.
I love him. He's so good.
Aaron Paul.
Aaron Paul is fucking
It was so
great.
funny because I'd literally never seen him in anything but Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah, I guess I've seen him in like 2 or 3 things. Maybe.
Yeah,
He's so fucking awesome. But he, I mean, to get specific, one of my favorite moments of the whole movie is his nose getting reset by the doctor. And then once things turn and they're actually fighting, the doctor uses that against him, like reaches over his face and fucking smashes his nose. That is such a good gag to fucking set. The setup and punchline of that is fucking amazing.
Oh yeah. It did remind me of watching the Babysitter, where it was just like perfect setup moments and payoff.
Oh man, so fucking good. So all of the gags, like, or whatever you want to call them, I think are really fucking good in
the
this.
Murder gags.
Yeah, like just the, I guess, quote unquote, the violence or the hits. Let's call them the hits.
Well, how you started the podcast, right? Mentioning the hand in the garbage disposal.
Dude.
Well, and I mean, to end it with a head in a microwave is kind of like, it is the how far can we take this?
Oh man. Fuck yes. I love all that shit. I don't know why I love it so much, but it really does hit, I think, the things that I love, which are, I like the visceralness of all that shit, and I think this is why I like body horror, because it's fucking,
I thought of that
it gets your fucking skin crawling, but it's like there's a release to it too. Like it's you know what I think it is, it's and this is what I think a lot of good horror, this is why it's good, is that it's the roller coaster effect, right? Roller coasters, their whole setup is predicated on the anticipation and buildup of adrenaline, and then the drop. And the drop releases the adrenaline and makes you go, I know that I'm not actually going to die, but my body has been tricked into potentially thinking I might die up until this moment, and then you get this cathartic release of fucking...
Which you had, because again, I want to bring back to you at the end of the movie, Tim, you stood up, Tim. Tim was all, this movie's just so satisfying, you know? Like,
yes!
Referring to the second half. But so I want to bring up again, when I mentioned it there, that I think that was because of the presence and therefore the consequences of the rape scene.
100%.
Because, like, to continue your roller coaster metaphor, I think a scene like that is the looking over the side when you're going up, you know, and like just being looking into oblivion, you know, your death, whatever.
Yeah, it really is. You're staring the worst thing that could happen in the face.
Yeah.
And your body is getting so fucking primed up by that. And so everything else, all of the release is so satisfying because you need it to counterbalance.
It's not exactly the same, but it's not totally dissimilar from what we were talking about with X-Day hair extensions, that juxtaposition of having like child abuse with sort of the crazy, more like fantastical horror moments.
Right.
It was a different way of sort of putting us at the top of the roller coaster before dropping us down.
That's interesting. So I think that the lesson, you know, is sort of to explore that if you're going to make effective horror. That's part of... Because I don't think of this as scary at all. But like the whole reason we're doing the podcast, right, is to look at what makes horror good and like to seek out sort of the whys of horror. Like, why is this effective? Why does this scare me or, you know, get me worked up?
Right.
And this is one of the better sort of conclusions of that search.
Well, this is connected to I submitted that we watch this because I saw it was on some list of Stephen King's favorite movies of the millennium or whatever. And so there was something in On Writing, and no, it was actually his book on horror films where he talks about the 3 levels of horror, and I forget them exactly, but I remember the first one being the really unnerving, truly disturbing, like the one I'm always getting out of, like The Shining, the sort of on unshaky ground, whatever, you know, he puts it much more simply after, I'm sure, whatever, how many chapters. But anyway, then there's like the sort of the bottom one though is just sort of the easy, gross out, whatever, intense stuff. Yep. Did you find it there?
Yeah, you're right. He said gross out is, you know, like sight of severed head, tumbling down a flight of stairs is his example.
So I have curiosity, what's the middle one?
So let's see, gross out, the horror, the unnatural spiders the size of bears, dead waking up, walking around.
Yeah.
Lights go out and something with claws grabs you by the arm. That one. And the last and worst one is terror.
Yep.
When you come home and notice everything you own has been taken away and replaced by an exact substitute, which actually is probably largely what Jordan Peele's next movie, Us, is about, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, so that one that's
this
the most...
is the terror one.
Well...
Right? Like,
so,
I guess it's all three, maybe.
I was using first and last differently than you put it right there. I was saying last is the most, like, just easy kind of gore, visceral one. So I was going to say, like, yeah, it is, maybe this is the pure exploitation of that level of horror, but, like, I did think, you know, the whole rape scene was really scary, like, in the moments surrounding it.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Like, yeah, could be, you could say it's cheap because it is just an execution on that level. That's kind of the point he makes. It's like it's harder to do the tear, and then it gets subsequently easier, you know, down the levels.
But I would argue that this does the terror.
Oh, yeah, because identifying with the parents and the situation, absolutely.
Yes, for sure.
And so, anyway, this is a way to get to, what worked for me, and this is maybe not so much a film, but it worked for me, like, this film, I hadn't had it for a long time, where it proved to me that I wasn't totally desensitized to movies. And yeah, it was the rape scene, but really it was a moment before the actual moment itself that put me there in that sort of, that really scared, you know, gross level, which was Paige, the friend, getting stabbed. Like you could tell they had those, which we read about, they had those, like, sort of ambulance, you know, medical consultants on set or whatever. How that stabbing looked, and it was the fact that she was in her bra with her shirt off.
Yeah.
Like, just the stabs, the way they were, the way that everything about it, the way they sounded, it was just so it wasn't like another, you know, horror movie. You know.
Well, and in a weird way, because you had mentioned that you think maybe that scene or parts of that scene are what made this the unrated version, that maybe they cut parts of that. I found Paige's stabbing to be the least, like, gratuitous. Like, I don't think it's like,
that's what struck me about it.
Exactly. I think it's like, oh no, when we show this in this movie, because we're gonna get gratuity later with the kills, but this is not the scene for that. This is the scene for, this is the realist shit.
Yeah, at that moment we were buying it that these characters would stab her there. And then...
Yeah, and the way it's depicted, and, you know, when he stabs her, it's not like blood fucking gushes out. It's just sort of trickles out, and, like, I don't know that that's how it would work in real life, but the fact that it's dark, almost black and not like gushing red blood, and it kind of trickles out, is way more unnerving. Yeah. It's like, oh shit, she's already dead almost.
Right. I know, and it was just at that level too, where it's like, if this was like a movie, we think maybe she could just survive, but we're like, no, this looks like she's dead. And that's what was, and I liked them at this point too, so it's fun.
And just, I mean, I guess because I've seen it before, so I knew that she died, I guess, but I didn't really remember how, and just the dread of it leading up to that scene. It's like, you know she's gonna fucking get it. Yeah. And just the anticipation of that dread, because that scene actually goes on for quite a fucking long time.
Right.
Well, so
what also went on for a long time, which
man,
which really worked for me. I was so into, like, their escape. You wanted them to get out so bad, and they had all these little moments where it was like they're screaming for help for people who can't hear them, where they just get caught again. Yep. But finally, as our main hero, the daughter Mary, and it's set up where she's a swimmer, right? Which actually worked for me too. A lot of the times that sort of setup, like. But it was interesting setup payoff, because we're programmed that, okay, this is how she gets away, you know? And I was actually feeling that. Again, I was forgetting what kind of movie it was, or not knowing the remake, if maybe she played a bigger part in it, you know, and wasn't incapacitated. But she's shot like right at the last moment.
Right before she gets around like the outcropping of rocks where she'd be safe. Yeah,
so that
dude.
worked for me in that pure just like not knowing if she's gonna make it or not. Get away, get away, get
I
away.
mean, it is a
crap.
It is a the whole movie really is just such a dread-inducing movie. It's the same. It's the teeter-totter, man. It's like every time you think it might go okay, they're like, nah, that's not this movie.
Yeah.
Fuck you. And that is
Right,
it is hard on you.
Exactly, which was like that setup of, oh, she's a swimmer, maybe she's gonna make it.
Yep.
Nope.
No, she sure as shit isn't. Fuck. So,
Well, everything. We just both started talking.
well, I was gonna. There's a thing that I wanted to circle back to sort of your earlier point about the kind of the balance of things. There is a cinematic moment that I think really depicts this as one of my favorite moments of the movie that is not a violent moment. That's such a weird thing to say. Whatever. The moment is right as I mean, I want to call him Pinkman, so let's just call him Pinkman. His character's name is Francis.
Let's call him
Frank.
Jesse Pinkman.
Yeah. So Jesse Pinkman has come in. He's come in from the guest house, and he's being a creep ball and flirting with Emma, and Emma is flirting back because she now knows, right? Like Mary has come back. She's seen the necklace, which I love the whole necklace fucking
Me too.
Plant and all of that stuff. And they get into the fight and they're fighting, and they finally, I think they've momentarily incapacitated Pinkman. Like it's right. Cause Pinkman gets Emma on the table with the knife.
Mm-hmm.
She's already stabbed him. She's gotten him, or Pinkman gets her on the table and is fighting back. And then I believe John runs in and kind of tosses him off of her, and they both fall down.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where John and Emma grab hands and they pull each other up.
Oh, right.
And it is like, we're fucking, because John has said earlier, he's like, are you prepared to do whatever it takes? And it's like, this is the moment where they grab hands and they look at each other, and I'm like, this movie is about to get fucking awesome. It's gonna get fucking awesome. And it does. And they fuck Jesse up.
They do.
Like, holy shit, they fuck him up. And it is so satisfying because he is such a piece of shit. And like, they're all pieces of shit, but of course he's the lowest of the three, so
Right.
he's gonna get it first, but he gets it fucking good.
I was having trouble figuring out how to articulate this. I kind of just put the impending deaths of each of the character had weight to them in a way that they don't normally. But I meant more by that. I was trying to say, like, it's just each character like had such a sort of, presence, or it was like, despite minimal characters, every sort of I don't know, like each person, like you had a lot of, they
have their own nuance. Like, they have little, idiosyncrasies to them that I think part of it is that
I just mean every death was going to be a big deal. Every person was a big deal. That's what I was
because
trying to say.
because they've already set up, even in limited sort of ways, they've set up archetypes of the bad guys.
Yeah.
And those archetypes are landing really well for all sorts of reasons. And so when they get it, you're like, fuck yeah, you got it, because you deserve to get it.
How about
because Pinkman is the first time that the parents kill somebody,
right?
Likely in their lives, right?
Yeah.
And so that moment of like grabbing hands is like saying, yeah, we're gonna kill this motherfucker. And dude.
Well, it not only is working, what I'm saying, for the deaths, but also for the almost like succeeding. Like, remember when they're about to kill the main bad guy?
Yeah.
And like going into his room, but they hear the gun, clicking, and then he like holds up the mattress.
I know.
There's the fracas, and he jumps out the window. All that was just so. Oh no! I gotta get him! I gotta get him all.
That scene is so good, and I just love the fact that you have this, again, kind of to your point of the balance of masculine and feminine. You have John taking on, what's the girl's name? She's got a weird name. Do you remember?
The bad one?
Yeah, the bad girl, like Sadie.
Yeah, so that was Sadie.
Sadie, yeah. So Sadie, John's taking her on in the bathroom, and it's a fucking, like, it's a beat 'em up, knock 'em down, drag out, kind of fucking throw people against the wall shit.
Fight.
Yeah, close quarter fight, and having Emma fucking shoot her in the face.
Yeah. That was a good kill. Like that moment. That was a good.
And it just feels right. Right?
Sorry,
Like,
I always try to limit my swearing, Tim, but it can be it can be contagious with you. Excuse me.
Oh my God. I mean, it just feels so appropriate that Emma's the one that's like, you enough with this fucking fight in the bathroom. Like, fuck you, get away from him. I'm just gonna end it.
And again,
I'm gonna fucking end it.
Deaths had weight to them.
Yes,
that's why.
Big time.
To sort of stay around this whole area of the film. I loved it when Justin finally did stand up to his dad, not just as I loved that in itself, but like for all the times that we've seen the moment where someone pulls a trigger and it's out of ammo, like this is the best one of those I've seen, because not only did it play well, it's just sort of like, oh, it actually could have gone either way. Like I didn't see it coming. It should have probably, but that it is an example of like confirmed almost patricide. Like usually it's like, that's huge.
Yes.
He's killing his dad. Like,
dude,
granted, but still.
I think because of all of the setting up of the dad being disappointed in him and his dad's sort of view of him as this impotent thing.
Well, I guess the moment started, which you had mentioned earlier, which was one of my other favorite moments. A little thing was just the way Justin the kid left the necklace as the clue for the parents to put together. Which actually was funny.
It's a betrayal, right? Like theoretically, it's a betrayal, but like it's a betrayal to a piece of shit and a confirmation of like some moral, like actual, the kid's not a complete fucking,
That was the kind of like
shit.
Right. That was the kind of setup, just in movie terms, I'm usually not crazy about or feels like a little forced to me or whatever. That I know like. You're more of a fan of those things where it's like, I like the sort of set, not like the setup payoff we were talking about, but just kind of like these little like, maybe it's objects being used that way sometimes.
It's true.
Done not well in ways.
I love the nuggets.
Yeah, but this one really worked for me.
Yeah.
When he left it and the way he wrapped it around the mug, I'm like, this kid's smart. Great. This movie's smart.
It's just, man, the characters are so fucking well fleshed out. That's what I love about it. Where else do we have? Okay, so a couple things, just little things like the reversal of things, like you were saying, like we've got a plan. We're gonna get them out in the boat and we're gonna get out of here. Oh, we can't find the boat keys, and then we spend a lot of time with that just hanging there, right? Like other shit starts happening. They got to deal with fucking the fights and the killings and all of that shit. But at the end of the day, we got to get the boat, right? That still is the solution because they don't have a way to get
How simple.
to a hospital.
That was great. We just have to find the boat keys.
Yeah. I love shit like that because it's not heavy-handed. It's just a practical matter of how do we solve our problem.
And it was too perfect. They were in like the unused champagne party glass that had to fall over.
Yeah.
Like that's like, oh yeah, totally. That is where someone would put them.
It's just logic. It's all logic. That's what I love. I love clean logic. It fucking makes sense. And you go, fuck yeah.
I'm actually ready to move on to what didn't work. Do you have anything else that you really got to get in? We've been at it for a while here.
I think no.
Okay, speak now or forever hold your peace. He did not. Let's move on.
The only thing I'll say is, Paige, you fucked up because you wanted to smoke some weed.
Yep.
But it's not your fault, Paige. It's Justin's fault because he offered.
Right. He told her it was good weed.
That's right.
Don't do drugs. What did not work?
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
Okay. So.
Yeah, what?
This is just a dumb little thing, and there's so little of it, but there are a couple in the first act. There are a couple really, really basic camera setups that I hate. I fucking hate. They're so dumb and basic. And I'm like, there's all sorts of great shit filming wise in this. I mean, not like there's not fucking, crazy Argento shit going on, but it just is, it's clean, great, like the story moves, the camera
solid
feels
storytelling.
Right. But then there's like 2 or 3 times where so I think the first time it happens, Emma and Mary, they've just pulled up to the house, they get out and they have a 2-person conversation, and it's just a 2-shot on them standing next to each other unnaturally facing the house. And I'm like, why? Just pan, do something, follow them into the house. This whole conversation could happen on the move or with over the shoulder or something.
Oh,
but
you mean so it's like a moment
just,
where they were like, let's stand here so we can play it for camera?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then it happens a little bit later, and it drove me nuts seeing it twice. But I think they make up for it by having 2 shots that are kind of match shots. One in the first act when they get to the house, they have a Steadicam follow shot of her walking up to the boathouse, the red boathouse, and she goes around the corner and the camera loses her and follows the boat, the wall of the boathouse, and then comes around the corner and catches up with her. They match that shot later when John is running to the boathouse.
Okay.
And it is. So in the first one, it's really smooth and quite beautiful, and the color is great and vibrant. It's this red barn or whatever. And then the second one, when John's running in, it's like just after total freneticism, and the camera is all over the place, flying around, and you barely see anything. But it is the exact same move, right?
Yeah.
It's like walking down the dock, taking the left, coming around the corner.
Wait, are you saying you didn't like this?
No, I'm saying that they made up for the 2 things that I hated by a thing that I liked that I didn't get to put into what worked.
Okay, so you did get in your last word. Good.
I had forgotten about it.
I only had a couple very little things.
Okay.
What did not work? This is, I think, more personal preference thing, but I'm kind of like picky attuned to the movie music being like overused. So that beginning, like just from the get-go, where it was like already so like intense with the killing the cops and having them bleed over the pictures of his kids.
Yeah.
Then it was just that, do I don't even know what it was, but it was.
I don't even remember.
It was movie music. I don't know. Yeah. It was just sort of. There are a few too many moments. At the same time, like I appreciated that it wasn't so stark. I was able to sort of. Then by the time it got into the kills, like get into it in that little bit of a movie way that was necessary. But like as the actual rape scene, for example, like of course, no music.
Yeah.
So that's an example of like, how that works.
Yeah.
And it was like everything else. Okay. If that, that's the most serious thing to happen. But then does that mean everything else wasn't serious? I don't know. I'm just like very hesitant always as, from a filmmaking perspective. Someone who makes films, I'm always like what I don't look at it as a default ever. And it always sort of comes last for me. And like, I kind of don't think to use it unless I really think to use it,
I think you make a really good point because I can't really remember the music in this at all, but I remember the tone and the kind of baseline feeling that the music gives you, and it actually, I think, is a disservice to this movie.
Yeah.
Because it makes me think that this movie, especially in the, like you're saying, in the opening when she goes swimming, it's very like dun 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 dun, like, or whatever the fuck it is. But it's too kind of God, I don't know. It feels like music from a shittier movie, but of a movie of its time, of this sort of
exactly.
That I'm like, oh, don't do that weird sort of bullshit studio kind of glossy movie
like Stephen King.
Something that I don't like.
I want to get to more later, kind of since he was the one. Stephen King was the one I was like, okay, I want to see it. Mm-hmm. Like something else he said I didn't want to mention later was like he was standing by that if it had been like a foreign film or whatever, foreign language film, that this film would be on the same level as blah 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 blah.
Sure.
That kind of like if it had that just a foreign language would have given an art house sensibility. But I think the music, more than it just being in English, ruined its sort of like chance at being a full art house film?
That's a good question, because I'd like to go back to some of the high like high tension, irreversible, those French, there's a series of French ones. I think there's
I'm talking more like the funny games and things like that.
But
Vanishing.
So I can't really actually recall what the music in those is like. It's probably really sparse, right? Mm-hmm. But it'd be interesting to go explore those a little bit to see what they were doing.
Yeah, because I think you're right. It was a little too much just in the mode of like an aughts horror film, Yeah,
exactly. It's like they hired, whoever they hired just did the thing that they've been doing a bunch.
Yeah.
And churning it out.
So the only other thing I have, just little moment, the jump scare. It wasn't necessarily that it was a jump scare itself. It was pretty cheap. But right before, when she's waiting for the friend to come out of the motel, and the housekeeper.
Oh, man.
It would have been fine if she had knocked like how a person would, but she slammed like her whole open palm. Boom, boom, boom. It was, excuse me, miss, are you?
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
And what she's like showing her a set of keys.
Yeah, are these yours?
Whatever. Yeah. Jesus Christ, lady, calm down.
Couldn't you have just gently knocked? It was just one of those where I hope not. I hope it was just she did it that way and no one said anything. That'd be more forgivable. But I totally see it as maybe it'd be more scary, or
right
if you did it louder, and how do I do it louder? And it's just no, if the rest of the movie was so good at being kind of this realistic approach.
Yeah.
Why not something as simple as that?
Yeah, totally.
I don't know. I mean, silly, but it stood out.
I get it. I liked it for the effect of it, but
we laughed.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why we laughed.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hard pressed to find much more that didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Krug's weirdly shaved chest kind of didn't work.
You say Krug, I say Krug.
Krug, whatever. His weird shaved chest, I was like...
Doesn't do it for you, Tim?
Yeah, I was like, I feel like he would just be au natural.
Mm-hmm.
He had this sort of he didn't shave it clean with a straight razor. He just did a trimmer. And so it's it's 2 millimeters long and creepy
have
looking.
time to pass when you're in prison, I guess.
But maybe that's right for his character, because it's also unsettling, because it's just weird.
I did not notice that. That's so funny, Tim.
There was one point he has his shirt off for a lot of the movie.
I feel like we'll have a bit for things of note. Let's get on to that.
Okay.
Things of note!
This should be interesting.
Maybe that should have been a thing of note.
Yeah, I think that's important. Chest hair length.
Krug's chest hair, his facial hair was very specific.
Well, since this was recommended by Stephen King, I just thought I wanted to hear what was his interesting take on it. So just to hear his quote about the film. The murder of Paige and the rape of Marie in the woods are particularly excruciating because there's a sense of filthy reality about these crimes that the depredations of Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees can't match. There's zero audience rooting going on for the bad guys here. When Marie finally loses the struggle to keep her plain cotton underwear on, and we know it's really going to happen, we're filled with rage and sorrow. Our identification is all with the victim. The villains are bad people and they deserve what's coming to them.
That's why this movie works. That literally is why. Because there's
zero audience rooting going on for the bad guys.
We experience that moment with her.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are so fucking angry about it that if we don't get what we get out of this movie, we don't like this movie.
Yeah.
And we get what we need to at least I don't know what the word would be, at least temper that anger.
Mm-hmm.
I would say to almost fulfill the need of some sort to catharsis or
rage,
to take back some power that we've watched her have taken away. That's kind of really what it actually, I think, does come down to, is we get to get on board with the parents taking back the power as best as they can.
It was an interesting example too. If horror films, sometimes an easy answer to why one likes them is it's a safe space to be scared, but this is an example where it's a safe space to feel rage in that sense.
Yeah.
Rage and sorrow to other negative emotions.
Yeah.
Did you recognize
that's crazy.
the main gal, the daughter? I didn't, but then when I realized,
was like, when it first started, I was like, oh shit, who is this actress? We know her. And then they showed her, and I was like, oh yeah, it's her. But then I couldn't figure out who the fuck she actually was.
I know her from Ty West's The Innkeepers, which was, I really liked that movie.
Shit! That's the same girl!
Yeah, but she looks, she's done up at like such a different person, right?
Oh, fuck.
Like, she's such kind of like a nerdy whatever. Because I thought
my first thing was like, isn't she on Gilmore Girls or something?
Yeah.
And I think she was, actually. But, fuck, she's the girl in Innkeepers.
Yeah. Well, I know you were reading the Wikipedia. What else did you have that was interesting?
I think one of the most interesting things is just comparing the summaries. Because like I said, I haven't seen the original. And seeing what the original, like, the plot, like what actually happens in the original that is different than this.
Oh yeah, how
much of what works for me in this movie is not in the original. And then there are things in the original, according to the breakdown that's on Wikipedia, that I'm like, oh no, I don't think I would like that. Like, there's like Emma's character actually goes down on the equivalent of Jesse Pinkman's character, in that sort of trying to disarm him, and then she bites his penis off, and I'm like, it's almost parody to me at that point. Like, I don't buy that.
The one thing I've
but I have to watch it. Yeah, I gotta watch it.
I've seen the film, and kind of the only thing I kind of remember about it was the impression that it was just sort of more like stuff is happening and there's not the sort of control and deliberateness that went into this one.
Well, and actually that's one of the things that they say about like Wes Craven being cool with remaking this and having such a big hand in it is he's sort of saying, like, when we made the first one, we were so limited budgetarily, that we couldn't pad out and really work a lot of the things that would make the story sort of filled out and the characters make more sense and the story sort of work better. We just didn't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
So this was an opportunity
to hone in on that. It felt like
stuff.
A rust shoot movie.
Yeah. And so I think that's actually really cool to I'm not a huge proponent of remakes, but it's to good effect in this.
Yeah.
And I think the ideas that he had from the original that probably just never made it in, being able to hone in on those things and then have other artists come in and work their angles and enhance the whole thing into what you get, and with respect to it, without sort of, I don't know, like being overly exploitative or whatever. Like, they took care to make this movie the way it is.
That was the sense I got, was the producers, one of who maybe is on the more exploitive side, not the one who is doing this. Sean S. Cunningham, really quick, interesting, is the guy who made the original Friday the 13th. But no, Wes Craven and some of the other producers, you got the sense that they really, played a good hand at ushering this in, knowing the intentions going in. Yeah, as you said, like, we're remaking it, for the reason.
Yeah, I'm curious. I think I almost guarantee I will not have the same reaction to the original that I had to this.
Yeah. For the time, though.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, this has been a heavy discussion already, Tim. I want to make it heavier by posing this question
Jesus.
I thought was interesting. Make it even more difficult, because
Okay.
when else can we do this?
I'm prepared.
Do you think, this is a question for you, do you think it would have been different? Do you think it was better, the fact that they were a white family versus a family of color? Do you think that was intentional?
Well, I think it's intentional insofar as they probably didn't think beyond that.
Yeah.
They just rotely said it probably never even came up. So are you saying, okay, so are you positing that would this movie be better if it was a family of color?
Or worse? Would it have worked the same way?
I think now, if you made that movie today with a family of color and white perpetrators, it would be potentially much, much more hard to watch, like upsetting, because it would speak to even more of things in the world that are right bubbling, at the surface right now. But because of that, may be better and more poignant. But had that been done in 2009, I don't think that. I think the audience would have rejected
too much.
I think people would have flipped out, and that's not. I don't think that they're justified in flipping out. I just think that culturally in the society of 2009, their brains wouldn't have been able to deal with it. They would have been like, what the fuck is this?
You know what? That's
had
what
a shitty response to it.
I think that's why I brought it up, because I agree. Again, we're no authorities on this. But
had they done it in 2009, that would be fucking ballsy, and I probably would have been like, fuck yeah, this movie. But maybe, I may not have watched it.
It's a thing of note, though.
I don't know.
I think it's interesting because look at in just 10 years how things have progressed in that sense.
Yeah.
I just thought that was honestly really interesting.
Well, and fuck, dude. Now, I mean, this is, I think, why I'm so excited to see Us.
Right. It's because like horror movies are scary again because it feels real again because we're actually casting how people look and are in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really interesting question.
Because like only now did Get Out usher in this new wave of like African American starring and behind the cameras, like Blumhouse films and horror films, and
finally, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and the vampire one we watched,
Well, and I'll tell you what, the podcast that I recommended last time, one of the seasons is on the Mississippi burning case, which is all about, white supremacy in Mississippi killing black people and it just being kind of the fucking norm in the way it was. And dude, you make man. So, you start making movies that are sort of tapping on that.
Yeah. So there was that angle, man, just as far as is something, I think that's all indicative of what I bring up is when something's too progressive or not, being indicative of what culture's at. How do you push something forward just the right amount? But I was also wondering, would it have been the same thing? And I guess this is actually kind of already answered, but like there's something about the when he calls her, your prom queen daughter or whatever, what I did to her. Like there's something about the stereotypical whiteness of that idea.
Well,
right?
actually, that's a good point, because I think what having it be a white family does do.
They're rich, and remember they kind of hate them because they're white and rich.
That's right. And that does sort of speak to another thing that is important to speak of, is that no matter how fucking rich you are, dude, bad shit can happen to you too. You are not fucking, you are not on your little hill above everybody. Like, it's important to remember that we're all humans.
Yeah.
Right? Like, status is not going to keep you safe necessarily,
right?
Like you can be an asshole, and you can be in a sorry, I don't mean to say all people in gated communities are assholes, but like you can insulate yourself as much as you want from the world, but you're still living in the world. And so on both sides, you are not necessarily safe, and you have a responsibility to live in the world with other human beings and understand that they exist.
Yeah.
So I think that is working in this.
Yeah. So this, I'm glad we went there. Thank you. I thought that was interesting. But I wanted to say, we said this for other things too. Like, We want to hear from you. This is like so hard to talk about when like none of us profess to be an authority on it. So please, if you're like screaming at us or you're just like want to say something so bad, like we will play it on our show, like whether it's about the discussion of this movie overall or what we just spoke to here and there. Like we are, if we had a call-in thing right now, it would be great, but we don't. Sorry, you know.
And for real, if because of our limited perspective, right? Like we as much as I think you and I try,
we're movie fans,
right? But we do try to live in the world and see other perspectives. We aren't other perspectives.
No.
So we can only go so far in that. And if we need to be kind of whatever you would call that, taught better,
or even just something to expound on too.
Yeah, like please, you know, by all means do that.
Yeah. Did you have anything else or things to note?
I'm just kind of no, I mean, I looked at like how well the movie did, and there's a part of me that goes, because I liked it, why didn't it do better? And then there's a part of me of like, no, it's fine, I get it.
I thought this was interesting. We talked about, you know, in a few times here, how the main bad guy, Krug, which is such a perfect name for a main bad guy, I'm glad they kept that, you know, embodiment of that. Like, I guess, you know, such evil, such just evil, you know, he is lacking any sort of humanity that we're able to at least tune into. He plays it well, though it's got to be there somehow. I thought this was really interesting. This was from like some casting information about it. I'm going to read how the actor who played Krug, Dillahunt, he attempted to humanize Krug by approaching the character more as a man who feels some love for his son, but is bitter about how his life has turned out and is fearful that he is losing his position as the leader. He further clarifies, this is the actor talking, that Krug fails to take responsibility for his own actions, instead blaming others, and prefers to deliver his own twisted justice to those he feels have wronged him. So that's what we brought up at the beginning. This is his own twisted justice. This is his own worldview. But I think I don't think that first thing about him feeling bitter how his life has turned out, fearful of losing his position as the leader, his love for his son, none of that came through for me, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think it spoke stronger to the theme and sort of making him a villain in the sense that made the movie work.
And that was the actor's take on it?
That was the actor. That's where he was coming from,
That's good. I mean, I think that's good that he built that, but we didn't have to know that.
Right, because the movie seemed to eschew, you know, that he's fearful, the idea that he'd be fearful of losing his position as a leader. No, we shouldn't see any fear on him, even though this kind of like ultimate anger and what his worldview is coming from a deeply fearful place. It's, you know, it's still hard to make that connection when it's so disparate, you know? Or, I mean, you could say it's not disparate at all. It's just he's really afraid.
Right.
But he's any idea, you know, the movie not presenting the idea that he's fearful of losing his position as a leader. It takes away, we see that he's scared, actually, any notion of that. So that was a good thing. I just thought it was a good, interesting example of an actor's approach bringing something to the character as far as dimensionality, but it not even needing to be apparent in the end result.
Absolutely. That's cool. The only other thing that I think is of note is just what else this director has done, which is not a whole lot. This is his second feature of 4, and I have never heard of any of them.
It was the first one I was reading a bit about. Sounded pretty intense. What was the name of it?
Hardcore is a Greek drama film. What is it about? I don't even know what it's about. You had said it.
I don't know what it was about, but I just read that there was some...
There's some really intense shit in it. It's called Hardcore, so shocking.
Yeah.
But I guess he's Greek, this guy.
But it was sort of the... it was his realistic approach in sort of extreme situations, how he dealt with the actors and the characters, presenting them a certain way that it wasn't that made the filmmakers or the producers want to enlist him for this versus like a horror movie filmmaker per se.
So the other movies he's done are Plus One, which is something that's been on Netflix forever. I don't know if it still is. I don't think I ever turned it on. And Delirium, which is, I think, also on Netflix. And I have not watched that either. It has Topher Grace and Patricia Clarkson, and I don't love Topher Grace, so I just refused to watch it. But maybe I will now.
Tim, I'm sorry, I'm gonna sound like an asshole here, but I didn't really think it was interesting to know that you haven't seen any of these filmmakers' other films, have nothing to say about them.
They exist.
I'm sorry.
Fuck, you just fucking... Ryan just put my head in a microwave. Fucking turn that shit on. Damn.
No, but I think...
Brutal.
That he did one movie before it, though. That's what you started off saying.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah. The trajectory of what brought him here. But maybe you're just saying more so it's like now you're kind of curious to see his other films. I think that's all.
Yeah. That's funny.
I had the first thing I looked up like before we watched this movie, you know what comes up? This is my last thing I had written on it looks like written on the first of this year, an Amazon reviewer on Amazon. They titled the review, a reviewer named Chris. They titled the review, "A Snuff Film Which Amazon Needs to Remove!" They gave it 1 out of 5 stars.
Wait, for Last House on the Left?
Yeah. This film. I think it was just
okay.
I think it was just good to but what was interesting to me there as they get talking here. So they say they would if what did they say? If Amazon had any decency, they would remove this movie from their collection on Prime. So they said, though, what was interesting, that it was in the first seconds of the or the guy's last seconds alive of the blood dripping on the picture of his daughter, that she thought that the film went too far at that point, and she was was over it. But then a little over the line, but not nearly as grotesque as what happens about 35 minutes later. So when it got to the scene, they just turned it off and stopped watching.
Well,
but that was kind of interesting. What gets more interesting is that they reveal that they were watching the film, though, that 35 minutes, the minutes that they watched, through the X-ray trivia through Amazon, which is something that shows little bits of trivia popping up as you're watching the movie. So then they go on this tangent about one of the actors appearing in Breaking Bad and how the Jesse is in Breaking Bad.
God.
But I don't know what it is, Tim. Maybe if you think so too. But I thought it was so interesting that this person who only made it 35 minutes through with this movie was also watching it with this Amazon special features pop-up thing. I
mean, it's the worst recipe for hating a movie.
Yeah, I mean, granted, that's why I'm am I alone in this? Because granted, of course, they aren't wrong in, being offended by the content.
Sure.
But it had quite a bit of gall to assume that of everyone, I think.
Yes.
And the fact that they didn't finish it.
It's a little indicative of maybe if the blood dripping on the daughter's pictures in the opening scene is a clutch your pearls moment for them. What other movies have they watched?
Why did they keep watching after that point too?
Yeah, I mean, if that's interesting.
Well,
okay.
Anyways, it's okay because 7 people found this review helpful.
Oh, well, good. That's good. 7 fewer people who got to see this.
And I don't mean to I feel like this worried that this is coming across as just ragging on this guy, Chris, while we were talking up Stephen King's quote, who I don't look up to for everything because he thought The Shining was bad and thought the new It was good.
Right. Well, yeah, it's all with a grain of salt,
Yeah.
Life.
You ready to pull from that hat, Tim, and see what we're watching next week?
No, because we got to recommend Dead some shit, yo.
You're right. I'm just so excited. Let's recommend Dead some things.
Okay. What do you got?
Well, I got to bring it up here. Sorry. I thought you were going to go, Tim.
Okay, I can go.
Go.
Okay. For once I have one. So I've read a lot of comic books and been into comic books for a long time, and I have never read Sandman, which is Neil Gaiman. And I finally picked up the first volume of it, and it's twisted, man. I'm not that far into it, but it's really cool, and it's dark. And as my friend Amy Dallin, who works at the comic store and does all sorts of amazing other stuff, she doesn't just work at a comic store, she just likes working there. She was like, it's 80s-tastic, but it's great. And she is not wrong. It is really fucking cool. And I don't even want to get into it of what it is. Like, it's widely known to be amazing. So if you're into comic books and you haven't read Sandman yet, get into it.
I'd always see it. What's it kind of about?
I'm not sure I can really even say yet.
Cool.
I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. I'm not far enough in, but I guess it is. I don't even know where I would start. It has to do with dreams and sleep.
Who would you recommend
supernatural shit.
Who would you recommend? So if you like supernatural,
yeah, supernatural stuff. It's got kind of a fun 80s goth vibe thing going on in the artwork, which I'm digging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gonna get weird. I mean, it's already kind of weird because I'm just in the beginnings of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to connect the dots and figure out what the thread is. But I have the feeling and that because of the writer, it's gonna get real trippy.
Cool.
So I think it's gonna be very psychological, trippy, like maybe lots of dimensions, maybe lots of time stuff, lots of dream shit.
Well, speaking of...
Looks cool.
Lots of trippy psychological time stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My recommendation is a film that messed me up when I was watching it.
Wait, can I guess?
Yeah.
Is it...
I'd mentioned it to you already.
Is it Garfield 2?
No.
Okay.
Garfield 4. It's called Toad Road.
Oh, yeah.
What a title, right? It's great.
Yeah.
It's on Shudder. I was like, I started a couple movies. I'm like, not feeling it. But then I turn on Toad Road and it grabbed me from the get-go. First, I'm like, wait, is this really bad? Because it's more in the vein of like a pseudo found footage film or Harmony Korine film or something.
Okay.
But then after the first scene, I knew it was that. And I'm like, oh my God, if this is a horror, which like, when films like that, they really get to me as being starkly realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So like, oh my God, if this is a horror film, like, where is this going to go? And then they started like, it's all about these people doing psychedelics and stuff and like saying all these things about them and like what it does. And anyway, it has like...
Now, hang on. Let me clarify. It's Toad Road, Towed or TOAD?
No, like the frog, TOAD.
Okay, cool. Toad Road.
Which is basically like a... it's sort of... It's almost like not a horror movie until it gets to the moment, kind of thing, the horror moment. But it is because they set up this place that's like Toad Road. It's where this stuff happens. It's an urban legend.
Cool.
And oh my God, Tim, like the scare moment, I hadn't been like talk when you were like,
oh right,
I want to be scared.
And you said you were like, I was sitting in my apartment by myself with the lights off watching
with headphones. And it like
awesome.
came at me and I just like... I went there and like, oh my God.
Did a little drop of pee come out?
No.
Just like one drop?
Not that I recall, Tim. Maybe.
Did your cat get scared?
No. He was probably looking at me like, what? But anyway, I don't want to say more.
Cool.
Toad Road is great. It stuck with me in a way, like a different way, but that and The House That Jack Built were both kind of really under their skin movies for me this year I've watched.
Nice.
Though Toad Road's like more like 8 years old, something like that. Okay. 7 years old.
Cool. Well, should we pull?
Now we can.
Okay.
Your turn.
All right, here we go. I forgot to take the other shit. Oh, it's my watch. I put my watch in there for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, here we go. You ready? Fuck. Should I pull something else? It's another Argento film. What do you think?
No, we wanted to watch them.
Okay.
Again.
It's called Deep Red. It's 1975.
I wonder if this is the one I've actually seen that made me not as interested in,
shit.
in Giallo.
Cool, dude. I mean, fuck, I'm into it.
Yeah. No, I think it's...
How many of these did we put in there? Damn it.
All the ones we wanted to see. Did you put them in or did I as far as these Argento films?
I think I did.
Which I'm fine. That's great. You wanted to see them?
Yeah.
It's happening for a reason. We got to trust the hat at this
Trust
point,
the
Tim.
hat.
We just said what? It's our serendipity
That's
cap.
right. Cool, man.
Let's go with it. Watch it with us. 1975 Deep Red next week.
Sweet. All right, well, You can find us on dismemberinghorror.com and on Instagram, dismemberinghorror, and on Twitter at dishorrorpod, and at Mayor McDuffie and at Tim Aslin. And
at Mayor McDuffie on Instagram, Ryan McDuffie on Twitter.
There you go. That it?
That's it. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for slogging through a heavier one.
Yeah.
Even though, we did it.
We did it. So hope you join us for the next one too. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.